When I review the top Hearthstone cards of the week, I often don't use Humorous cards, even though those are some of the highest upvoted cards on the custom Hearthstone subreddit. And this is because I lack a soul, and reviewing Humorous cards is like explaining a joke to someone. It kind of ruins it. But then I got to thinking, there are a lot of Humorous cards that could actually work in Hearthstone. Maybe they wouldn't be great, but I don't think they'd mess up the game too much, and some people could have some fun using them. With some stretching of the imagination and a few tweaks, here are some Humorous cards that could actually work in Hearthstone. First up we have Ross Bobberts, 1 mana 1/1 neutral legendary with the battle cry, plant a happy little tree.
Maybe there's a happy tree, evergreen tree. He lives right there. Look at that. Isn't that a nice little tree?
And this happy little tree reads, whenever a player casts a spell, restore 1 health to each hero. So the tree is a non-statted permanent resident of the battlefield, and this just means it interacts kind of like the Nether portal from the Warlock quest. It can't be destroyed and will be there for the rest of the game. It's an interesting control concept. I would think that against most aggro, by turn 6 or 7, they'd probably play like on average around 4 spells, so that's about the same as a Mistress of Mixture in terms of heal, but without as good stats. So this leads me to think that the little tree would really only thrive in decks that rely on their own spells in order to heal. Miracle Rogue and Jade Idol could have almost a Reno effect with the gadgets and turns, healing themselves for a lot. FYI, I would hate this card for Jade, but Jade's stupid, so let's just forget about that for a second.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Exodia Mage is another great deck for this card, where the spells to find other spells could continuously heal until the player gets the combo. It would be pretty silly when they got the combo, because the fireballs would first heal the opponent for 1 and then deal the 6 damage, so it would take an extra fireball than usual. And by way of Bran or Pandas, there could be 3, 4, or 8 happy little trees on the board, and then the game will have gone completely batshit crazy. Besides just having to draw the card in order to start getting the game long value, the card also takes up a spot on your board, which won't be a problem in a spell-based deck, but it's still a disadvantage. I'm sure at one point I've said how I wouldn't want cards that are permanently on the battlefield, but I think I've changed my mind. It would be interesting to see how a low impact effect like this one would change the gameplay in the slightest ways. If it costs a board slot to communicate easily to both players that there's now a permanent change to the game, and as long as those changes aren't too crazy, I think this type of card could be fun.
That's when you really begin experiencing joy of painting.
Next up we have Get On With It, 1 mana Paladin Secret that reads, at 30 seconds into your opponent's turn, summon a 1/1 Zdormu. For the impatient players and the video editor myself, this card is amazing. The normal maximum time for a turn is 75 seconds, so this card would reduce it to 45 seconds, giving just 15 seconds to make a play when Zdormu spawns at the 30-second mark. This is a perfectly acceptable time for most turns, but against those lengthy combos like the ones from the previous card, the reduced time could be a legitimate problem. Now this card isn't competitive, it's a meme card, but hey, if you're playing Hydrologist and this comes up as an option and your opponent has been taking really long turns this game, this is a solution to that problem. Finally, streamers who get sniped and then trolled with roping turns can do something about it. I do agree with the comments on the Reddit post that the Zdormu should have stealth, and it's only that one turn, kind of like the adapt stealth works. It wouldn't be a competitive card by any means, but discovering it for a meme would add some fun times to the game. So Blizzard, if you're gonna put some bad cards into expansion, make them silly like this one, and not terrible and boring like Nash. Alright, this next one is even more ridiculous. It is Merkel the Wise, 1 mana 1/3 neutral legendary Murloc that changes all card text to Nurglish. For example, Murloc War Leader, rip the pre-patch, would have 3 mana 3/3 +2. I hope my Nurglish isn't too rusty. It's a simple concept, but basically it's just there to mess with all the newbies. Now this isn't a great idea for Blizzard to implement, and it would overall hurt the community because it discourages new players, but come on, it's just a silly card, nice 1/3 stats, and if you played the game for a few expansions, this wouldn't really be a problem. For a commentator like myself who can't remember the names of cards without deck trackers on the side, it would be hell, but for the most part it's just a little change to the game. I think this would be a really fun tavern brawl, where you're given some cards that you usually don't see, like Nash, or do you even know what these cards do? Alright, here you go. But the Tavern Brawl would fill your deck with the least commonly used cards and disguise their names so people wouldn't know what they're called or what they do. And yes, maybe people would just go to Reddit and look at the list of cards in the Tavern Brawl to remember what they do, and that could lead to turns taking a long time. But I'm sure you'd be able to get some games where both players are just trying to remember what the cards do and just playing the cards outright. You'd also progressively get better as you played more games and learn what the cards do, so Blizzard could use this to teach people how less known cards work and why nobody plays them. It's an interesting concept concept for the non-competitive games of Hearthstone, and I'm sure it's possible to make an overlay that changes all cards to Nurglish when you play, but if you want a similar effect, you can just change your language in Hearthstone. Last up we have Captain Obvious, the top-rated custom Hearthstone card of all time. It is a 3-mana 3/4 legendary neutral that reads, when you draw this, add it to your hand. This card isn't the most powerful card of all time, but with help from the comments, some additional changes with that same obvious flavor could create some unique interactions for this card. Simply giving it Battlecry, enter the board, and Death Rattle, dies, still keeps in flavor the card, but adds more interesting interactions. Even the card text, when you draw this, add it to your hand, means if you drew Captain Obvious with Varian Rhine, I know it's an old card, then you get Captain Obvious on the field and in your hand. Now, while the wording doesn't support it 100%, if a more current card like Army of the Dead, which you get from Death Knights, worked this way, the text would actually have a different effect on the gameplay. Keywords with this card being remove instead of draw, but Hearthstone is known to have word inconsistencies, so why not just let this be one of them? But even the battle cry, enter the board, could lead to some more value with Bran, doubling the captain, and Death Rattle, dies, synergizes with N'Zoth, dies to Spirit Singer Umber instantly, and if you silenced the Death Rattle, well, I don't think it would be immune, I think it would just die. Now I know this card wouldn't see play in anyone's reasonable or competitive decks, but I just set out to show how these humorous cards could work in Hearthstone, not mess up the game, and let some people have a fun time. Yes, it would suck getting Captain Obvious as a legendary, but Blizzard has to print a certain number of legendaries and a certain number of cards each expansion. Was there a legendary from this video you'd rather have over Professor Petricide, or Lillian Voss, or Marabi? Not Marabi. I still haven't given up on Free Shaman. Blizzard is going to print some bad cards each expansion, so no single expansion is too powerful and messes up the meta. My request, make the couple of bad expansion cards fun. I think Knights of the Frozen Throne is a great expansion, but I would have any of the cards shown in this video over cards like Nash, Cryostasis, or Spellweaver, which are just bland, weak cards that no one really wants to play. Yet. Thank you for watching. I'll be back next week with the top Hearthstone cards of the week. Thank you all for your IG submissions. Keep them coming. I'd recommend checking out the original posts of these cards, as the comment sections are filled with great jokes, and I definitely stole a few for this video. Let me know if there are any video ideas you have that I should do. It's been a pleasure as always, and until next time, ta-ta.